before he got Alzheimer's, because it's too depressing to only know somebody when they're ill, if you see what I mean. So I'm going to run through quickly so that you understand the change that took place when he got Alzheimer's. These are pictures of Bill, self-portraits of Bill when he was about 21, 22. This one is 1955, very early. This one here is when he's leaving Philadelphia. He was an American, he lived in Philadelphia. He comes from a German background. His father and mother, his father and his grandfather were Germans. He came from a working class background. This is enormously important because in a sense that he changed his sort of class when he went to the Philadelphia School of Art, which is like the Harvard of the art school in America. Everybody went there. It's one of the great ones. And he stayed there, and he finally, when he went into the army, he like everybody else, had to go in the army, and he got the GI Bill of Rights, and he came to England and worked at Ruskin. This is when I met him. Now this is the beginning of always worked in series. And this particular series are the Dante series. He did 35. They're enormous pictures, and there are various aspects of Dante's Inferno. These were done. I have to look. I'm terrible about dates, and so these are about 1963, 67. I met him in 63. We started to live together, and my father thought it was all dreadful, and so we finally got married in 65. Very usefully, because he was an American, so there's awful problems about visas, so that ended the problem. It was perfectly all right after that. These are the extraordinary series of pictures that he did of the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia. This happens every year. Very, very important aspect of the class system in Philadelphia. For those of you who don't know Philadelphia, it's exactly like Oxford and Cambridge. You've got the upper class who run the city, and you've got the workers. And once a year, the workers take over Philadelphia, and they take over the town. And they have this Mummers Parade. Now, goodness knows why. They wear women's knickers, I don't know why at this particular time, and they dress up in these strange clothes and golden slippers, and they dance up Philadelphia. And this is Bill describing it. Now, very interestingly, these are some of the most beautiful ones. These are the climax of the Mummers Parade. They arrive at City Hall. City Hall is authority, and they dance madly in the front of City Hall, and there they are, dressed up, dancing away, dressed up as women. He did two very large ones of these. This is actually this particular base is based on Piero, this particular figure here. This is his attitude towards the police. Remember that Bill is always slightly an outsider, and the police were very stuff, and they used to attack the students, as they usually did. And this is, you see, the police with dancing figures of the mummers. Now, this particular time he's living in London, and it's Vietnam War. And there is Bill, who is an American, feels guilty because he ought to be fighting, delighted that he's not. And so all of these pictures have a reference to the Vietnam War. This is Old Glory. You can see all of the people that he went to school with. All the workers who, of course, it was the working people who actually fought that war. All the people who had any money came over here and became students out of the problem of being involved in Vietnam. So these are all the workers who are actually involved in this war. And at the back of it, it's the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. When he did portraits, he didn't do them very often. He only did them when he knew people. This is one of my favourites. These three men, I used to evilly call it the Three Queens, but it was in fact the Three Queens, but it's called the Triptych, of course, its proper name. And these three men lived together and are still living together. The Triptych is 1971. Man in the middle is still alive. This is young Paul. I mean, young Paul is now 65. This is Frank. It's a splendid picture. Frank is standing in front of his own paintings. Young Paul is, as always, helping, and behind them are the figures of Victorian heads. I'm sad she's not here tonight, because this is Robin, and this is a portrait that he did of Robin. This is the most extraordinary portrait. This lady lives in a sort of jewellery box, if I can express it. She's surrounded with things, and she lives alone, and she has her cats. And there she is, sitting like an icon in the centre, and the cats are here and surrounding her. It's describing her world. And now we moved from Highgate, and we moved to Little Venice, where we live now. And he was delighted with this place. It had his own studio there, and he decorated it. It still got the yellow walls. He was obsessively interested in yellow. And he did this series which which were called by Christopher the conversation pieces. Now this is me, of course, and we always got cats. We don't have children, we have cats. And there is Robeson, and I always think it's strangely like an Annunciation. Though why it should be me with an Annunciation, I don't know. This man is a friend. He was another teacher at City and Guild where Bill at that time worked. But what is interesting about this particular picture is absolutely surrounded with his memories of Philadelphia. The picture there of his teacher, Walter Stumfig, of him. This one is about a picture we'll see later on. And the whole thing, he and this man and Roy and I at this time had been to Egypt, and so there are references to Egypt here all the time, all the things we brought back from Egypt. This is Robin again, and myself, and here he is absent. He's not quite here. Now you'll notice this kind of the extraordinary perspectival space. You have to realise that in terms of modernity, if you wanted to be a figurative artist at this time, the whole world was doing abstract work. And so the flatness and the disturbance of the shapes are because it is a modern thing. Now we live actually on the canal. And outside, of course, are all the ducks. And so he's brought the ducks right up into the thing. There's me, of course, Robin. This is our bookshelves, and him not quite there. And this one is night, and this is where this is my friend here, June is here. Another young woman who's a student of mine and is now an art historian. There's me. This is nighttime. We had goldfish, and the goldfish is reflected in the top bowl here. My whole world is collected around this table. I have to say that this is not the right colour of the wallpaper. This is our bed. The bed is still there. The cats are here. And interestingly, he's put himself, you see, there's a mirror here, a wardrobe, and there you see his face here and a face here. Now, interestingly, this is the first time I get a sense that he might know what is happening to him, because the door is black, through the door, the black door. Somehow or other, he's not with us, not quite with us here. And this is the last one, and it is an absolutely splendid one. This is such an interesting picture. We're all around the table again, it's the same place. There's Christopher's friend, me, Robin again. But he's removed himself. He's on this side. Now, interestingly, he's outside the circle. And the figure at the top here, this is a dear friend of his who's died. So this is all his world here. And at that point, his studio was upstairs. So his studio isn't in time. It was a time when it was snowing. And he's nearly moving. He's nearly leaving. He's nearly leaving us. And again, the dark piece where he's going through into his studio. This is the most extraordinary man. He's called Ron Isaacs, and he was a nurse. Bill was asked. We finally realised there was something. He was ill, and he went to the Queen's Square. And Ron Isaacs was in charge of something called Aricept. Bill was one of the earliest people to charge it. They discovered they thought he had Alzheimer's, and he had to give this Aricept. Now, we were so fortunate because this was an incredibly sensitive man, and he got interested in Bill. And Bill used to do drawings and bring the drawings to show Ron. And Ron said, "How marvellous. It makes me understand your illness better by looking at your work." And he is the reason for all of these were painted. Because these were done after he realised he had here are the incredible drawings that he did for Ron when he was trying to express how he was feeling when he got his Alzheimer's for the first time. This one, sadly, is not here. This possibly is the most sad, because this is when Bill realised for the first time that he'd got Alzheimer's. It's a self-portrait. He's clutching onto that table as if life is dependent upon it, and that dreadful sort of emptiness of the ceiling. He can't get out. He's locked into this particular thing. This was 95. This is just about the time that they realised that he had Alzheimer's. I've put a couple of Francis Bacon's on. I'll tell you why, because I want to explain that when it's about memory, Alzheimer's is the loss of memory, and the point at this point, he wanted to express to us, and particularly to Ron, what it felt like to be sort of caught into your mind that you couldn't move on. And the person he thought that had expressed this better was Francis Bacon. So he went and looked, he was able to relate his work to another artist. This is how Bill expressed what he got for the first time. And you see, it's the relationship. He's still able to connect with other artists. One of the saddest things that happened was that in the end he couldn't even recognize his own paintings. And when we went to museums and we went to exhibitions, he didn't recognize them. And this was the terrible thing, because for him, I think he died in 2007, but I think he died in 2000 when he couldn't draw anymore. And these were done, now this is very interesting, the style has changed, you'll notice. The original pictures are enormously complicated. They're a combination of photography, drawings, sketches, organised, and the actual paint quality is different. It's very smooth. It's, if you can imagine, a kind of Dürer-esque set. There's no emotion. Suddenly, when he's really painting how he feels, all the German background comes. These are like German expressionist pictures, and they're painted directly with the brush going. He has to get it down quickly, and he's telling us how dreadful it is. He can't get out of that space. Interestingly, you see, he knew by now that it was in his head, and so you suddenly see the head in both cases very, 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 very emphasized. His drawings are absolutely extraordinary. They are the last thing that go. This one is an interesting one. They said to him said to us really, in the hospital here, it said, well, we really won't know, Bill, until you've finished exactly whether you've got Alzheimer's or not, because they have to examine the brain. Would you be prepared to give your brain? And he said, of course. Then he got home and got frightened. He thought about it, you see. So that's why the saw is there. Oh, what did I say I'd do? That's what that one is about. And they go on as he gets more and more inside himself. He can't. People say to me, did he speak to you? Well, of course, he's a painter. He's actually painterly expressing himself as how he feels. And it's the fear, and he's almost decapitated here. Look at the colours. Look at the way those poor eyes. This is the last picture he did of me, and as I do dye my hair all sorts of strange colours, it was never quite that colour. So I think that he must have sort of slightly invented that. But I did have a shirt like that. And this is the saddest. He can't paint anymore, and he's trying his best, and he's putting it down as much as he can. This is 2000, and the next one. Look at the drawing. All that is left is a terrible, terrible sense of the anguish of the eyes. And these are watercolours that he was doing all the time. And they're watercolours of masks. There are several of them. They're all there. There's no particular date. And the last one of all is Ronnie Carroll. It was a great friend of his, and he became this wonderful carer. Now, Ronnie will tell you about this much more. They had the time of their life. They used to sit on the sofa together. It was so sweet. They were sitting there sort of holding hands, and it made Bill's last few times possible. Carers are marvellous, but this time he had a friend and he had a male. And I think they used to go and to back horses together or something, do some male thing together. This is the last one. Okay, thanks.